So we continue with this model. Now I have it, I'm gonna say almost ready to go to Maya. I may have to go back and do some extra tweaks and extra sculpting to exaggerate and modify some of the things. But for now, when I say this is my file, and I'm going to go and export it out. So right now, I am under my geometry. I have my subdivision level 5, so it's pretty high. It's using 39 million polygons or vertices better, so it's pretty heavy. And I'm going to try exporting it out to Maya. So of course I file saved in case it needs to come back. I'm gonna go here under Z plugin, and there is this place where it's a multi-map exporter. We're not going to export the actual, because you see here, for example, other places here like exporting the tool, that would generate exporting the actual mesh, which is huge right now, 39 million. It's huge, so that wouldn't be doable in Maya, and I wouldn't be able to do anything with it, neither doing any of the texturing work there. So I'm gonna export out actually by this is just the map. So I'm gonna go to the multi-map exporter, and here there are a number of options. I can export out the displacement and the normal map. The ambient occlusion, although the ambient occlusion it could be used for some other additional effects, but I'm gonna keep it just with those two for now. I'm not going to export out the mesh. And I'm going to go here under the export options, making sure that my displacement map is using the level 1, so that it's using the low res as a target, so that it knows that my file in Maya is going to be the small one. I'm going to keep all the other adaptive and all the smooth UVs components scale the same way. I'm not going to change anything with it. And let me just quick go back here, and then I'm going to go scroll down a tiny bit more, and I'm just trying to get out here the map size. I'm doing it at 2048 by 2048, so I'm keeping it a pretty decent size so that I can render an HD without a problem. I could go to 4096, but for now I'm gonna keep it like that. Normally by default the program says flip V, and that's because again, if you noticed, the UVs were upside down, so here the program by default it will flip them correctly, so Maya will not have any trouble reading them. Even if they come upside down, we could flip them in Maya, no problem at all. So here we go. I'm gonna just simply say create all maps and see. Of course, it's gonna ask me. I'm working on here, so let me try to get to save it to the right location. Through Citrix, so that's why it's a bit slow right now trying to find the right folders on my computer on campus. There it is. So when I go to my see if I can go find my folder. Um, Seems that the network is not, but there it is. I was clicking on the wrong folder. All right, here it goes. All right, and I'm gonna go under my source images in my project. I'm gonna save this not as a I'm actually the program doesn't let me save this anything else but a Photoshop file, which I kind of like because it's kind of my master. So when I call it Dino ZBrush body, I'm gonna call it Dino ZBrush body. It'll add extra naming underneath of that. It's gonna make it very long. And let me just save that. So that'll take a few moments to run through and export out my textures. It seems that it's still thinking there is, okay, exporting out right now, subdividing geometry. So it's just taking a little while to read such a big file. There it is. All right. Now, so we've done geometry again for doing the normal map. And I think both is a good idea to do, just the way you can uh, try punching. There I just finished creating the two maps. And took 2 minutes, not too bad for such a big file. All right, let me just minimize my file here. And I'm gonna go and look for those files um, on my folder there. Edit return Gomez. There we go. Then we're going to my source images. Dino ZBrush there is. Body. Let's see if that's it. It looks like it is it. Let's have today's date. So let me just launch that Photoshop file. All right, so here it's my displacement map. You can get closer to it and you get to see the quality of it. If you get too close, you're gonna see the pixels, which of course is might represent a little bit of a challenge. So of course, if I went and rendered a 4096 by 4096, I might get rid of that, but of course that's going to slow down my render time. So this we're gonna use as a height or displacement. I'm gonna keep that just there. I'm gonna close that. Let's see. I'm gonna look if I can find my normal map because I don't see it. Maybe it. A normal map's active. Let's try opening it up in Photoshop. See if I can kill this. There is. So it did my normal map, pretty aggressive normal map. We'll see how that plays in Maya. Feels a bit different than normal maps before. So we'll see how that works in Maya. So I'm gonna go and launch my Maya program right now. Okay, so here I'm in Maya and my project all set. So I'm gonna go and open up my file. And if you remember when we exported out our Maya file, the last file we used was this file, which was the higher resolution version that we exported out. It was a smoothed version of our character. I deleted history on it before I exported it out. This is not the file I'm going to use. When we exported it out, I made sure I saved the previous version before I did smooth. And the reason for that is because what we're gonna, here is the non-smooth version. We're going to use this one as the model that is going to receive those maps. That way my render time will be slower. The other one will be too heavy for not only for rendering but for animation as well. Sometimes people have to use those heavy models. This is not the case for our strategy here. So this model could be rigged without a problem for animation for either film or video game. So let me here go and call my hypershade, and under my hypershade, let me just get rid of this window. I don't like it. It takes too much space and it's not really that useful. I'd rather use the attribute editor. So I'm gonna create here an Arnold standard shader, right? Here my standard surface, and I'm just going to use simply use that. I'm gonna call it Dino Skin. And here I'm going to connect to first I'm not going to put any color on it so that I can see my displacement working. Normally we have done bump map and normal maps from the geometry component to using the map mapping component. We're going to use that in a minute to connect the normal map to see how it works. But before I do that, I want to connect the the displacement map we created in ZBrush. Let me make sure this object is assigned to my dinosaur. There it is. So my dinosaur, it's now receiving the dino skin touch shader. And that way I make sure that that connection is happening. And normally when a shader is assigned to an object, you have the standard surface set shader group. This is the middleman that connects the shader to the geometry. So when you click on it, that shader group appears here. And in there, you discover that there is in this section of shading, there is displacement mat, and we're gonna connect to that our file that came from, let me zoom out here, you can see here the displacement map node gets figured out, and then I have a file that I will connect to that, my dino displacement. But I forgot to export it out in Photoshop because I don't want to use a Photoshop file there. So this file, I'm going to go back to Photoshop and say save as a copy. I'm going to save it to my computer. Make sure I'm in the right place. Dino body Z. I'm going to call it here. I'm going to just name it displacement. And this one I'm going to save it as a TIFF. Right, you can use TIFF PNG. You can reduce the name if you want. Right now it's too long. We're just gonna make it dino body dino Z body displacement. Make sure you go to your source images. I'm gonna say save. My normal map is already a TIFF, so I don't need to export that one out. Let me go back to Maya and then do this connection again. I'm going to click on it here and then dino body displacement. There it is. I'm gonna open that up. Just by default, that if I render that out, that wouldn't do much help, or wouldn't help it. Really, it will do something, but not the way I want it. Let me put a sky dome here. And actually, I'm gonna just do a physical sky. That way, it's more than just white. And if I test render this, it's not going to give me the results just yet because hopefully it'll come up somewhere here. Because I'm working in a computer on campus, so it might not be showing my screen what I needed to show it. So let me call this one and try using this one to render it out. So I'm gonna, let me test that. So right away you get to see some of the effect of the displacement, but of course my model became all bulgy and ugly, which is not what I was trying to do. But the good news is my displacement is doing the job. And if I test it out and I zoom in on it and I render it out again, you'll see that displacement is actually modifying. It's more than just a bump. It's modifying the edge of my object. Maybe I'm not seeing it just yet. Let me try to get a bit closer here and see if I can show a little bit of that modification happening. And the geometry is not quite doing it just yet. It seems to be more like bump. So let me go back and correct some things here to improve it. I'm gonna minimize this and minimize that. And what we need to do is, in the hypershape we made the correct connections, but now we need to look at the geometry because we need the geometry to be able to receive that displacement correctly. So when you select the geometry, you go under the Arnold section because it's the Arnold program that is going to take care of it. And you scroll down, there is a section there called subdivisions. And that subdivision right now is the same type of subdivision is in none. And there are a couple of them. There's linear and Cat-Clark. Cat-Clark is the most efficient one. Cat-Clark comes from Ed Catmull, who is one of the founders of Pixar. And is that it's an algorithm that is going to take and is going to subdivide the geometry. Normally the number I use there is 4, 5, no more than that, because that's pretty much putting more calculation power. And again, this is subdividing the geometry as for rendering. It's not really doing subdivision on the actual geometry. And then I'm gonna just go and change here the height. Let me test it with height one just to show you, and then we'll improve from that. So let me just do a quick test render here. Height one might be still too much. And the height is forcing the amount of how much it's going to displace. Right now, what the software is trying to do is calculating the, the high and lows of that displacement map. So whatever is white will tend to go out, whatever is black is going to push in. And you can see now that my height is too much. And now we can see what I was trying to look at before, and it is that the silhouette of my guy is really being displaced here. So of course it's too far and it's not doing it correctly. So I'm gonna start tuning down this. I'm gonna say maybe point 0.3 might do a better job. Let me just save this one here so I can compare. And then point 0.3 there. Of course, you'll realize, of course, your rendering starts becoming slower. I'm sorry, and doing it a bit much still. It's looking better in terms of the details. Let me try to get the head in the picture so that I can try to visualize the head. All of it is rendered. You see that my model is not changed. Usually these numbers are small. Depends on the character, depends on the height of the size of the character too. Uh, yeah, his head still feels kind of bulgy. So I'm gonna save this one and then bring it down. I'm gonna say 0 point, maybe I'm gonna say 1. See how much that changes it. You don't want it to look, uh, bloated or swollen. So you can bring this out down a lot more. Maybe I can go to 0.05. It's getting better, and I'm seeing the skin to start doing the job. I'm gonna bring it down to 0.05, a bit more subtle. 0.05, enter. I'm gonna get a bit closer to see my detail there. The neck, I think that I could have done a better job in ZBrush, but that's your job of going and spending more time on getting those wrinkles and extra modifications. So you see here, I'm close and it's not, oh, hold on, I went to 0.5 again, that's why. Just made it too much again. Let me just stop that and then try 0.05, 0.05. That's it. One more time. Taking about a minute, not too bad, but then making it a bit more subtle, a bit better. I really could tone it down a tiny bit more. Now I'm gonna save this image here, and you can look at it from different angles. Bring it out different regions of it to decide if it's doing what you need to do or not. I want to test also the normal map. I haven't really not I've not tested it yet, and I want to see how that normal map that I created, if it helps me punching the effect a tiny bit more. We're not doing coloring yet. Color will be our kind of our next uh, place and our next test, our next part of the project. But I want to test the normal map. So the normal map, of course, we're gonna try the same thing we done before, which is the bump mapping. I'm gonna go push the file and then click on that one and connect that normal map file that we just had. Dynabody. This is the normal map. Let me just rename it. Dynabody. So I'm gonna call it body. I'm gonna call it here normal. So that it's not hard for me to find it later on because Let's get rid of that hyphen because Maya might not like the hyphen. Or like rather give it an underscore. All right, that one will be my file, and I'm going to test it. I suspect it's going to be a bit too much, but yeah, I already saved it. I'm gonna render it out again. But when the good news about that is that of course that will help punch the effect a little bit. So you see it's a bit much, but I can tone it down and help it uh, be a bit more effective. So let me just save this, minimize that, go to my bump value here. I'm actually going to change it. I forgot to change the normal map to space normals. Let me test that before I change it again. I forgot to make it to use tangent space normals, of course. That would probably give me a more refined effect. Ooh, that went too far with it, I think. Um, Different result than what I wanted, and my lighting also changed somehow here. So let's see what's going on. I'm gonna go to see because I think it's doing something that is not quite right. I'm gonna bring down this to point 5. I don't think it's helping, and actually working as a bump would be more effective. Yeah, it's doing something that is not what I was expecting. It kind of flattening certain regions, pushing it in a different direction. So I'm not happy with what it is doing. I actually think, let me see if object space normals does a better job. Really, I'm testing here. I honestly have not tested it before. So let me see if it's more like based on object. That's doing a little bit of a different job. Um, See if I can see it. I don't think that's doing the job. I'm not really happy with it. If you compare this with that, of course, I'd rather not having it. But let me see. I'm going to bring it back to bump because what I was doing with bump, it was doing a good result. Although it's a normal map, but it seems that bump was reading it better. And probably part of it is me not knowing exactly some of the transition for the normal map. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research to figure that one out. But let me see if bump does it. I'll keep it as a bump. Um, Definitely, I think that is doing a better job. So I just want to say point one, very little amount of it. See if that just does effect and helps me punch the bump a tiny bit more, or not, not having to go too heavy on it. All right, I think that's getting where I want to go. I probably will tone it down some more when I have my color applied to it. So you decide. Let's see, I'm gonna save this one and maybe compare back to when it was without it. So you can see without it and with it. Maybe we can figure out a good place once we have the coloring on it. Again, when we put the coloring on it, and of course the shading and the lighting, that's going to show us something different. So we'll have it, leave it like that for now, and just move on to our next step. Of course, if you discover that things are not looking right, of course you need to go back to ZBrush. And again, I suggest you to do this test first, and then you will continue painting your texture in ZBrush to make sure you have the right results. All right, I'm gonna stop with this video right now. Good luck with your project.